As soon as you have stress at meal times, your food is not going to digest well because you're stressed, right? Just on a purely physiological level. But nobody wants to come to a table where it's stressful to eat, or somebody saying, hey, eat those carrots. Hey, make sure you take a bite of your broccoli. It's just not like, I don't want to be there having that conversation with my children or have somebody say that to me. So there's a respect that goes along with feeding your kids or anybody, I guess.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey, Hilda here. It's 5 p.m. The kids are hungry, again, and you are scrounging around the fridge and cabinets trying to figure out what to feed them. One of them would eat only bread and potatoes if you let him. The other turns her nose up at anything green. How can you possibly feed them meals that they might actually enjoy eating that also truly nourish at the same time? This is episode 324, and our guest today is Corey Dunn. She is a homeschooling mama of 4 who can completely relate to this scenario. She came to the nutrient-dense food life to heal her daughter's eczema, and now, 8 years later, she is helping a growing community feed their real kids real food. Today, we talk specifically about what a nutrient-dense breakfast, lunch, and dinner looks like at Corey's house, and what it used to look like. She gets specific about what foods she serves, including snacks and popcorn and hot dogs, and brands that she recommends. She even talks about how to manage those of her children who have, let's just say, a more discriminatory palate. She covers also how to reduce stress at the dinner table. And finally, she reminds us that for every fast or fake food there is out there, there is also a simple swap or upgrade that can be made to make it more nourishing and more delicious. Before we get into it, I want to invite you to our conference this November, the 5th through the 7th in Allen, Texas, just outside of Dallas. The Wise Traditions Conference theme is Staying Healthy in a Toxic World. I feel like we need this more than ever. And we've got an all-star lineup of speakers, including Del Bigtree, Bobby Kennedy, Dr. Gerald Pollack, and many more, including, of course, Sally Fallon Morell. I'll be there too, so waste no time and go to wisetraditions.org to find out more and register today. I hope to see you there. And Paleo Valley makes a special turmeric complex supplement that helps the body handle inflammation and protects against DNA damage and helps promote cellular health. Turmeric, as you know, inhibits the inflammatory nuclear factor, and there are a lot of ailments rooted in or exacerbated by inflammation, like joint pain. If you know someone suffering from joint discomfort, they could benefit from this product, as research suggests that taking turmeric can help reduce swelling and morning stiffness. The sweet thing about Paleo Valley's turmeric complex is that it is made with all organic, whole food ingredients. So go to paleovalley.com and use the code WISE at checkout for a 15% discount. That's paleovalley.com. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Corey.
Thank you so much, Hilda.
I hear tell that you have a son that hardly likes to eat anything. Is that true?
Yeah, he's fairly decisive in his palate, let's say. He wants to eat what he wants to eat. And if I'm not serving that, then he's not thrilled about the meal.
How long did you say it took him to warm up to sweet potatoes, for example?
Okay, so he's 9. And the first time that he actually ate sweet potatoes or was comfortable enough to try them was about a year ago, maybe 6 months ago.
Do you think it's a texture thing?
No, I mean, I usually make sweet potatoes either baked or like French fries. So they're the same as regular potatoes in the way that they are presented. He just didn't want to try them because, I don't know, they were orange or something. I don't know.
Well, other than serving orange sweet potatoes, I feel like your family eats healthily, but it's not weird. And let's kind of break down that myth. I think some people think to eat healthy, it's got to be weird or bland.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's true. I think it's so weird about the healthy community. Like, there's no reason to do that. We have so many options with food and we can eat all of them. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love the Wise Traditions way of eating because there's so many options and you're not limited and you can pretty much make anything.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's not like we're like, oh, avoid dairy or avoid this or avoid that. We're like, everything's on the table.
Yeah, everything's available. And all you have to do is learn how to use those things and make them in a way that's the most nourishing that you can do.
Well, let's take it meal by meal, Corey.
Sure.
So let's start with breakfast. What did you used to put on the table?
Okay, so when my son was in preschool, he wasn't super thrilled about leaving the house every morning.
Wait, is this the same son you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I only have one son, and
Okay.
he's my picky one.
Okay.
I don't like to call him picky, but he's the one that doesn't particularly like everything.
He has a discerning palate, like you said.
Yeah, he does.
Okay, so what used to happen?
So I used to get him out the door to get him motivated to go to preschool. I would buy these instant oatmeal packets and not just the like brown sugar or whatever. No, I bought the ones that had the hatching dinosaur eggs. So you would like pour the hot water into the bowl and you could watch the basically candy dissolve away. And inside those little candy eggs were little colorful dinosaurs. I'm like, I can't believe I fed that to my kid. But I did. And he loved it. But actually, he saw them in the store the other day and he's like, Mom, do you remember when you used to buy that for me? And I was like, I was hoping you wouldn't remember that.
He remembered. Wow.
He
Now,
does.
was he looking back fondly or was he like, oh no?
I think he was, but I also think that he maybe does not remember what it tastes like. It's just the novelty of melting dinosaur eggs. Because we've been doing this Wise Traditions thing for so long at this point. I don't think he really would even like it, would be my bet.
Wow. So talk to us about what you put on the table now instead of those oatmeal packs with a melting dinosaur egg.
So we do oatmeal pretty regularly. And actually, that's one of his favorite things. But we do soaked oatmeal. So I'll prep it the night before with a little bit of whey or kefir. And then in the morning, we'll cook it up and it goes really quick. And the kids will put honey on it and butter, usually some cinnamon or some sucanat, something like that. They do like it sweet, not like candy sweet, but sweeter. And then they have usually fruit with that or something or some eggs. Sometimes I'll put egg yolks into the oatmeal and that makes it almost more custard-like. And then it adds the egg yolks to the meal and it makes it more filling and nutritious for them.
So I know you're saying that you soak the oats because that's what we recommend.
Right.
It's one of the Wise Traditions principles that all seeds, nuts, beans, grains, and legumes were soaked or properly prepared by traditional people to get rid of the anti-nutrients, right?
Yeah. Yep, that's right.
Is that complicated though? Just the idea, I think, can be intimidating to people.
So it's not complicated. I mean, oatmeal is especially really not complicated. Like you really just put, your oats in a pot or in a bowl with acidic medium with some warm water. You stir it up, put a lid on it or a towel to cover it so the bugs don't get in, and then let it sit on the counter overnight. And then in the morning, you cook it.
Right. I remember Sally saying all it takes is time, moisture, and like you said, a little bit of acidity to get rid of those anti-nutrients, which make it difficult to digest. It's funny because most of us eat oatmeal or we'll have an oatmeal cookie or whatever. When we have grains, we don't think twice about it, but traditional cultures knew what to do so that they could get the bioavailability of the nutrients and also neutralize the anti-nutrients.
Right. And, there's another way. If you're pressed on time and you've got to get breakfast out the door, or if you want to make oatmeal cookies, there are brands out there that sell sprouted oats, rolled oats that you can just buy. Oh. They sell them at Costco. They sell them at most grocery stores. 1 Degree is the brand that sells sprouted oats. So I keep those on hand for cookies and things.
I can't believe they sell it at Costco.
Yeah, you can get a big bag of it.
Wow, that's amazing. So again, it doesn't have to be complicated if you want to just start to nourish your family a little bit differently. Now let's go to lunch. What does your lunch look like for the kids?
So lunches are usually very simple. it's summer now, so we're doing a lot more raw veggies and usually a raw cheese and a deli meat. We can get really good deli meats around here that are not preserved with weird things. So I have no problem serving deli meat to my kids every day. And we'll sometimes do like a soaked and dehydrated crispy nut or sometimes a hot dog. I mean, I usually try and keep it super simple because we homeschool and I don't have a lot of time to get food together. And then in the winter, I usually have a pot of soup that we pretty much work through the whole week.
Let's go back to the hot dog for a second, because I think that might have shocked some people. Like, what? Hot dogs? Isn't that junk food?
Sure, it can be. I think that as long as you can find one that has good ingredients and from a farm that you can trust or that is doing it right. We sometimes buy T-Town Waters Ranch hot dogs, and I think they're Polish sausages, so they're not actually hot dogs. But also the farm that we get our raw milk from sells hot dogs, and our local health food it's called Common Market. It's our local co-op. They sell hot dogs and other things that are good for that.
Hot dogs are such a kid-friendly food. Like, this is nice. If your kids have friends over, it's not like you're going to feed them some weird goop they've never seen before, or like try this liver pate, which actually isn't that weird either. But you know what I mean? Like, hot dogs are more all-American. Let me just put it that way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's really important. If you're going to do this kind of thing, you got to be able to do it in a way that is sustainable for your family.
And what about ketchup and mustard? Like, do you upgrade those too?
Yeah, sure. So ketchup, you can get a unsweetened ketchup from Primal Kitchens. You can get fermented mustard. Some companies sell fermented mustards. I mean, there's all sorts of options for condiments. My kids will eat sauerkraut, so we'll do that too. Or if there's pickles, we eat a lot of pickles too.
And when you say pickles, you don't mean just cucumbers that have been in some kind of vinegar. You mean actually cucumbers that have been fermented, right?
Yeah, so we'll do a lacto-fermented pickle cucumber, or there are other vegetables that are really good with that. There's something called dilly beans that are green beans that are fermented with garlic and dill, and those are really delicious. Yeah.
Where do you find those, Corey?
So there's a company that does them locally that I like to support, because anytime I can support a local company, I'd really like to do that. But there's also Bubby's does really good pickles and sauerkraut that you can find in almost all grocery stores that I've been to around the country. And so long as you're finding pickles and sauerkraut and things that are in the refrigerated section and that haven't been pressure canned and if you look at the back and read the ingredients, if you're finding ones that are made with salt rather than vinegar, those are going to be your lacto-fermented vegetables. And those are going to be the ones that you want to get.
The ones made with salt, not with
salt,
vinegar.
Not vinegar.
Okay, got you. And thank you for that distinction. I was also just thinking how wonderfully satisfying this all sounds. And I couldn't help but think about also the bun. Since we're talking about the condiments on the hot dog, talk to me for a second about the bun. What kind of bun do you use?
Sure.
If any.
So sometimes we don't do buns. I mean, we had hot dogs this afternoon and didn't have buns. But I actually just made an order for buns the other day so we could have a cookout. And I ordered hot dog buns and hamburger buns from Organic Bread of Heaven. So it's an online store, and they have all sorts of sourdough products. They have pastas, they have breads, they have bagels, and you can get really good sourdough from them, and they just ship it to your house.
I've heard of them.
Yes, it's really good.
They even sell tortillas.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they do sell tortillas, which is awesome.
So now let's go to dinner.
Yep. Okay. So I actually looked up before we did this. I went on and did some Googling to find what was the most popular recipes from last year, from 2020. Okay. So from the New York Times, they were caramelized shallot pasta, crispy sour cream and onion chicken, baked feta and pasta, ginger lime chicken, and then roasted cauliflower with pancetta, olives, and Parmesan, which, I mean, that all sounds delicious, right?
It does, yes.
So out of those 5, I've actually made the baked feta pasta because it was like this TikTok thing that everybody was making. And I was like, I love feta, so let's do that. And it's actually not difficult to make in a nourishing way, because the basics of it are tomatoes, garlic, feta, olive oil, and herbs and pasta. Okay. So the way that I did it was, instead of using olive oil, I used ghee, because I didn't want to heat olive oil, because olive oil is one of those ones that if you cook it too high, it can go rancid. So instead of olive oil, we were using ghee. I used feta. I used it from an organic feta that's nice. And then out of the other ingredients, the only other one that's a little sketchy is pasta. And pasta, I mean, I have a daughter who is gluten sensitive. She can eat sourdough, but she can't eat an unfermented wheat. And because of that, we've done a lot of gluten-free, but gluten-free is also not the best option, in my opinion, because you're still adding ingredients that are not fantastic, or you're not soaking or fermenting or sprouting your grains. So there's a company called Jovial that makes fantastic products, and they make an einkorn pasta that is soaked. So the grains are soaked before they're made into pasta. And the other one is the Organic Bread of Heaven does make pasta as well. They make a sourdough pasta that you can order, or you can make your own, but it's a lot of work to make pasta. So
it is. So basically, I hear you saying we can take a dish and kind of make small upgrades, or what you sometimes call simple swaps,
right,
and turn something that could be not that great for you because of the quality of the ingredients into something that's actually quite nourishing.
Exactly.
Coming up, Corey gives ideas for how to get creative when feeding the family on a budget.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Nash Family Fish. Nash Family Fish is a small-scale family fishery with integrity. They fish with reverence and feed with love. Nash Family Fish offers wild, hook and line caught salmon from their family vessel in Alaska, and they ship frozen filleted portions directly to your door. This is the opposite of the farm fisheries that are bad for the oceans and our bodies. Nash Family Fish has collapsed the supply chain also to ensure the value and nutrient profile of every fish they catch. So catch your own. Go to nashfamilyfish.com and use the code WISE for 10% off at checkout. That's nashfamilyfish.com and the code word WISE. Hey, and speaking of catches, I want you to catch our brochure sampler pack. It's only $3, and it gives you one of each of our brochures. We use these to inform and educate the public about health. Butter is Better is one of the brochures. We've got Protect Yourself Against Cancer with Food, Nutrition for Mental Health, Sugar Alert, Soy Alert, and more. So go to westonaprice.org/order, and I'll put a link in the show description so you can get to it faster. Again, it's only $3, and you will get a nutrient-dense pack of information that you're going to love. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. I have to be honest with you. When you start talking about einkorn pasta and things like ordering from Bread of Heaven, no offense to them, and there's no affiliate links on this or anything, but all these things sound maybe expensive, and you've got 4 kids. How do you manage it budget-wise?
Yeah, so it can be expensive, and you can either pay with your money or you can pay with your time, basically. And I do put a lot of time into it. I really enjoy it, but I do put a lot of time into it by making our own bread, and I do make a lot of our own pasta and that kind of thing. But the thing is that it can take a lot of time, but if you're smart about it and you just kind of find your groove, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. So I'll do things like batch cook, right? Like if I'm making refried beans for a taco night, then I will make 5 times the amount of refried beans that we actually need for one meal, and then I'll freeze it all. And there's this great product called Super Cubes, soup like SOUPER cubes. They are little silicone trays that you can freeze actual cup measurements of. So you can freeze like a half cup or a full cup of something, and then you just pop them out of the silicone and put it in a bag in the freezer. So I can do that, have a bag full of refried beans, and then anytime we're having tacos, I just pull out my refried beans, and it's as simple as opening a can.
I like this idea because I studied to be a health coach, with the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and Joshua Rosenthal was always like, cook once, eat twice, or more.
Or 5 times.
And so Yes, and I used to just do the bare minimum, and so every night at 5:30 when my kids asked me what was for dinner, I was always like, "Oh, what am I gonna do?" If only I'd made a little bit more, it could have been sufficient for several
Right,
meals.
exactly.
Well, what about this though? You were talking about your one son who has the discerning palate. Are there meals that you put in front of them, and what do you do when they turn up their noses and they're like, "Oh no, mom, we don't like this at all."
I try not to have my feelings hurt. um, we adopted a philosophy very early on with our kids that mom makes one meal and you either eat or you don't. And we follow the Ellen Satter division of responsibilities, which is that parents or caregivers decide what, when, and where food is served. And the children are responsible for deciding if and how much they eat. And as much as it's not fun as a parent to relinquish that control, it's really the only thing that works, at least in our house. And I'm not going to let my kids starve, like there's always going to be something on the table that they like, that I know that I'm 100% sure that they like, even if that's only raw milk or sourdough and butter. The other night I made a soup and it was really good soup. And we had soup and cheese and bread and butter. And I think we had milk and kombucha as drink options. And my son had sourdough and butter and kombucha. And that was it. And I was like, okay. Like, it's all right. If that's your choice, that's your choice.
Well, what's nice about this division of responsibilities is it doesn't force the kid to do something. It doesn't make mealtime a battleground.
Right. As soon as you have stress at meal times, your food is not going to digest well because you're stressed, right? Just on a purely physiological level. But nobody wants to come to a table where it's stressful to eat, or somebody saying, hey, eat those carrots. Hey, make sure you take a bite of your broccoli. It's just not like, I don't want to be there having that conversation with my children or have somebody say that to me. So there's a respect that goes along with feeding your kids or anybody, I guess.
Yeah. And then there's the idea also, and I want to know what you think about this, that our palates enjoy what they've grown accustomed to enjoy. I picture kids in Alaska, for example, eating a lot of seafood and they don't turn their noses up at it because that's what they ate growing up. So, is there any way in which you do try to introduce things, let's say like organ meats, which we all know are super nutrient dense? How often do you serve them before you just kind of hope and pray that they'll accept them?
So we actually get organ meats in already ground up in ground beef. So when I buy ground beef, I don't do it with every meal because I don't want to eat organ meats with every single meal. But usually about once a week, we'll have a meal that has basically hidden organ meats in it. I mean, I make pate that's really delicious, but nobody else in my family likes it, which, fine. But I do want them all to have that nourishment. So I'm not above hiding it. I hide it. I hide the organs. But there's a company that's just come out recently called Pluck. And this is a seriously amazing product. It's a seasoning blend that has organ meats in it. And you can just sprinkle it over, whatever you're having. And you get a little bit of organ meats in there. You're not overwhelming your body with them. And your palate can't really discern it because it just tastes, there's a new umami taste to it, which is just that sense that gives you sort of the savory flavor profile.
Yes. Yes, I've had some of that stuff and it's good. We put it on popcorn,
Yeah.
what have you. It goes with anything.
Yep.
It's just like another seasoning. It's great.
Yes.
So I just have a couple more questions to ask you before we wrap up. What about snacks?
See, I had 20 kids over yesterday, right? They're all
20.
running around my backyard. It's not unusual that my house is the go-to house on the block. And I made popcorn for everybody. And the popcorn that I buy is sprouted popcorn. So it's already sprouted from Thrive Market. And I cook it up in my wok with some coconut oil. And then after it's cooked, I put on some good sea salt. So either the gray sea salt or the Redmond's real salt. And I put on gobs of butter, melted butter. And then I put it in a big bowl and I put it out on my patio and I say, go at it, guys. Everybody loves it. I mean, who doesn't like popcorn?
Yeah.
But I mean, also a lot of times I'll just do some cut up organic apples or some oranges or stuff like that, or cheese, just basic food that's in a kid-friendly form, and all the kids eat it. So I feel like that's winning.
I would say absolutely. Now, but what would you say to the mom who's like, oh my gosh, like I'm just learning to cook and feed my family this Wise Traditions way. What's one of the first things that we should take out of our cupboard or push away, or one of the first things to include?
I would say definitely get rid of the vegetable oils. All of the vegetable oils and things like that are not doing your body any favors. Just dump them and then replace them with butter, replace them with ghee, tallow, lard, any of those things that are actually nourishing to your body. That's a really simple one to do. Butter tastes better anyway.
It does. I had no idea what I was missing until I started tasting it. And then I was like, this is so good. And as we know, over time, the science backs up the traditional wisdom that's been around, that of course, what comes from a cow that's so simple, that raw butter can turn into, that raw milk can turn into something amazing like butter. We don't need a million chemicals dumped in to be more heart healthy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So tell me, Corey, were you always this into nourishing food? You seem like a pro. I've seen some of your sourdough bread making videos. I'm like, this girl is on fire.
Oh, thank you. So I've always liked to cook. That's definitely true. I used to shut the door to my mom's kitchen in the afternoon, and I would put on an audiobook at that point and just cook and then mess up the kitchen totally. And my dad would be like, you got to do the dishes. And I didn't really, but I do the dishes now. But I started really diving into nourishing foods when my second daughter was about a year old, because she developed really terrible eczema pretty much all over her body. And it was a complete mystery. And my doctor, her pediatrician said, oh, well, here's this steroid or here's this or that. And I put the steroid on her one time and she screamed and ran away from me. That's like 1-year-old screamed and ran away from me. And I was like, nope, not doing that. So I said, to my doctor, could it be food related? Because my mom had mentioned that eczema could be food related. And she was like, no, there's no evidence that eczema is food related. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try, because what's it going to hurt to take my kid off gluten for, a little while and just see. So we took her off gluten, and within a week, her body, which I'm not even kidding, it looked like dinosaur scales. Like it was all over her whole body. We took her off, and within a week, it was completely cleared up and she had beautiful baby, perfect skin within a week. And so that was my moment of, holy cow, if this is what we can do in a week with food, what is it doing to our bodies all the time? So that was my eye-opening experience. And I've pretty much been down that rabbit hole ever since. That was 8 years ago.
And how are your kids doing in general, Corey?
In general, they are really healthy kids. My kids don't get colds that often or strep throat or ear infections. Every once in a while, they'll get something like a stomach bug or something, but it's not anywhere close to what a lot of their peers are going through.
Wow. Well, they sound super well nourished, and I'm grateful that we've had this conversation. I hope it encourages a lot of the moms and dads out there who may be listening. But I want to wrap up with the question I often pose at the end. If the listener could do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do?
So I would say that you should find your favorite meal and try and make that meal in the most nourishing way possible. And then sit down and enjoy it with people that you love, by yourself, but enjoy it.
I love that advice. I'm going to do that tonight.
Me too.
Corey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Hilda.
Our guest today was Corey Dunn. Visit her blog fornutrientsake.com. You can also find her on Instagram by the same name, For Nutrient's Sake. And I'm Hilda Labrada-Gore, the host and producer of this podcast for the Weston A. Price Foundation. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for this episode's transcript, go to our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And now for a recent review from Apple Podcasts. Patricia says the Weston A. Price Foundation changed my life. I just want to say thank you for being such a healing influence on the world. During my first pregnancy, I suffered with a rare liver condition called cholestasis, and the doctors all told me it would only get worse if I had more children. My mother-in-law loaned me her copy of Nourishing Traditions, and that was the start of a complete transformation in my diet and lifestyle. We even got rid of our microwave in favor of a toaster oven, and we have never missed it. Why heat food in a way that destroys the nutrients within? I now have 5 beautiful and robustly healthy children who love cod liver oil, sauerkraut, kombucha, and the fresh milk from our little cow. Cholestasis returned for each pregnancy as predicted, but each one has been healthier and more full of energy. No nausea, no cravings, and as for my latest pregnancy, no signs of itching cholestasis until I was 7 months along. And even when it appeared, it was the barest hint of an itch that quickly disappeared with treatment. Compared to the burning misery of my first pregnancy, which started at about 5 months, I'd say that's a vast improvement. Thank you so much for providing such a valuable source of wellness. I frequently share these podcasts with my family, and I'll often listen to particularly poignant or relevant ones several times. You have truly challenged me to think critically about health and the health of my children, and have truly changed my life for the better. I greatly encourage people to become a member to help support the Weston A. Price Foundation, and leave a review to support this wonderful podcast. It is through our support that we can help lead others to health and wellness. Patricia, this means so much. You have no idea. There are times when we work so hard and we wonder if we're making a difference, so thank you. And if you'd like to become a member, just go to westonaprice.org and click on the Why Join button or Become a Member Now button. We would love to have your support. It's only $30 a year for podcast listeners using the podcast code POD, so that you can only pay $30 a year to be a member, and it will support this important work of education, research, and activism. And if you'd like to leave your own review on Apple Podcasts, that would be welcome as well. Thank you so much for listening. Stay well, my friend. Hasta pronto.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.